Consumers who engage with a business via social media spend on average 40% more on that company's products or services. So just by them engaging and interacting with a company on socials, that client, that customer is going to spend on average 40% more.
And once again, I feel like that's because of the relationship aspect.
It's the trust.
I'll spend more if I know you and I want to support you. I don't care about the dollar. I just want you to do well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just let's take a step back because I'm talking to you business owners here. Imagine what getting 40% more income on what you're
Revenue,
doing.
yeah.
Exactly. I mean, think what that does for your business. Think what that does for your margins. You know what I mean? Think what that does for your bottom line. That is so powerful. So that's all coming through socials. Blueprint listeners, welcome back for another episode with your host. I'm Zach Heyer.
And I'm Spencer Maxwell. And today we have a Zach and Tawnee takeover, hence the Z&T agency takeover. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about their business, their goals, what their business model looks like, and the importance of what they do. That's the big part. That's the big value add for today. Mm-hmm. So let's get right into it. Tawnee, hello.
Hi.
You didn't say hi to me.
Hey, Zach.
But I guess we already had the intro.
So Tawnee, the original idea was yours, I guess, and so you kind of had this passion. Tell us where this whole thing started, and then we'll eventually get up to the point where it is today. But kind of tell me where the Z&T agency started years ago.
Honestly, I mean, if you would have asked if I would have a marketing agency, I would have laughed in your face.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really an idea for the agency, but in 2020, Zach and I lived in Florida, and we had just moved, and I had a retail job, so I was doing some, I don't know if you want to call it like influencer stuff, and I started with, I think it was like almost, maybe it was like 3,000 something followers, almost 4,000, and I grew that to 5,000. I think it was in just like a couple months.
It was like 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
Jeez, OP.
Yeah. And so it was just from posting consistently, and I was like focusing more on like fashion stuff. And I was seeing the results of posting consistently and all the stuff that I learned just researching it. And I was like, I hated being behind the camera. Like I would have Zach take my pictures because I knew no one else in Florida. And we got
turntables.
We got in so many fights. I'd be like, babe, come on, he would get home from a long day of work, and I'm like, hey, let's go. We have to do a photo shoot. And he's like, are you freaking?
Well, no, that's not the issue. The issue is we would go to these places and
then I wouldn't like them.
And the pictures would be perfect.
And I would hate
they
them.
would look great.
It's a female thing.
And then she'd be like,
that.
no.
This
I'm like,
also,
what?
I don't get the female approval process when it comes to photos. I'm like, just post whatever. I don't care.
Which I understood like the value in needing to get the right photos.
Yeah.
But I'm like, these are fantastic. What do you mean?
We're just hard on ourselves. Okay?
Yes, you are.
But it was also in this Florida summer heat. So we're sitting there just dripping sweat outside trying to take these photos. And I'm like, this sucks. And I did not I feel like to be an influencer, you have to be open with your life. Like you don't have any privacy if you want to be successful. Most of the influencers I follow, they're relatable because they share. And I'm like, I'm a very private person. Like I do not like a lot of people knowing my life. So I was like, this is not for me, but I liked the behind the scenes of it. Flash forward, we moved back to Ohio. I got a 9-to-5 job as a receptionist. I met Stephanie, Spencer's wife there. Yeah. And I worked there for probably about a year, a year before I got the idea.
Which, side note, that's how Spencer and I got introduced.
It is. Yeah. If I would have never worked there, this would have never been a thing. I don't know where you guys would have. I don't know where you would have met. But I was working there and I was happy there. And I got, I found something on Instagram that was for a job for a blogger. Her name, I don't know if I should say it. Do you think? No, probably not. She's a big blogger. She has like probably almost like 400,000 followers.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I followed her for a while, and she was posting that she wanted to hire someone to do her editing, posting, stuff like that for her Instagram. And I was like, this is all the stuff that I like. And so I applied, and she told me that I made it to, like, it kept making it to like the next interview. And she said there were like thousands of people that applied. And I think that I ended up making it, at least, I think it was either top 3 or top 2.
I think it was top 2.
And so, and she was keeping me very much in the loop of like, you like, we're really interested. So I feel like I got my hopes up a little bit. Like I was like, oh wait, like this is actually, because like when I applied, I was like, this is not, like how many people are applying? This probably won't happen.
And then you felt more and more inspired.
And then every time she would reach out, and then I finally did like a phone interview with her and her husband, and she, like, the way that she was talking, I was like, I think that this like might happen. And I remember I got the email on the way home from work one day, and I walk in the door, and did I call you, babe? Or do you remember me telling you that I didn't get it?
Did
you know before I saw you? Or
no, I don't think so. I remember you telling me, but I don't remember if it was
and
a phone call.
I was disappointed. Like on the way home, I was like, dang it, I really wanted that. But then as soon as I saw Zach, I just started bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? And I think it was because I was like, I knew what it was like to be passionate about something. And obviously when you're a receptionist at an office, like you're not passionate really usually about what you're doing. So I was like, I see what this is like to be passionate about something and motivated to want something. And I just felt like, okay, well, now what? Like now I just have to go back to my 9 to 5. Not that I left, but I just have to keep working my 9 to 5 and, do the same thing every single day and have not really a lot of passion or motivation. So then I was on Instagram, and I saw someone posting that they were a social media manager, and I'd never heard that term before. So I started doing some research, and I saw that it was a big thing in COVID. I don't know if it was because people got laid off and they were working from home, but you just run people's social media accounts for them. You make content for them and stuff like that. And I was like, I could do that. Like, this is something that I feel like I could easily do. And so I took the idea to Zach, and he was like, okay, like if you can make X amount of money, however many clients it takes, if you can make X amount, then you can quit your job. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna, like, this is gonna happen. And so I remember him telling me, he was like, you are going to get, you're gonna have to call people, and you're gonna have to be uncomfortable. And I hate calling people. Like, I'm a little bit better now, but back then, even like he'd be like, we have to order pizza, and I'm like, no, I'm not calling. You have to. Or online. I would literally be like, how do I do this online? Like, I can't call people. Right. And so he was like, you have to call people, sell yourself to them, which I was like, what? Like, I have no experience, And so he's like, you're probably going to get told no like a million times before you get one yes.
Well, I mean, I had worked, I had worked in sales previously. So I realized the ratios of like how many people that you likely have to call to get a yes. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I was telling her, I'm like, hey, listen, if you're going to be calling these people, be prepared to get a bunch of no's. Be prepared to get called names, get, maybe yelled at, maybe get cussed out.
Which I would have literally bawled my eyes out if someone cussed me out. I would have been so upset.
Right. And I was just trying to prepare her for that. And if you know her personality at all, or knew what her personality traits were then, because I genuinely believe that has dramatically changed.
So. Yeah, I
since.
See that.
So not saying that is who you are now, because you're night and day different. Yeah. But then that was so like contradictive of your personality type to be able to do those things. Mm-hmm. It was crazy. Anyhow, sorry. You were calling.
She hopped on the phone.
I think it was my first phone call, right? That I made.
I think you made like 3 or 4 phone calls, and of the 3 or 4, all of them were interested.
Yeah.
All of them. And then you bagged one as a client.
Yeah.
Batting 1,000 right off the rip.
Yeah.
Which goes to show the demand.
And then not only that, but the one client signed for the highest package that you offered at the time.
And she's still my client today. So
retention, baby.
So like the interview for the blogger was like, or the vlogger was kind of gave you the a mindset shift or the eyes to see that like, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. And then along came the opportunity.
She was super validating in the fact that obviously she had been doing this for so long, and she was like, you're really talented. And I feel like that was the first time that I was like, oh, I am. Like, I actually know what I'm doing here. And I mean, I say I didn't have any experience and I didn't like working with other people's brands, but like the way that I grew my social media really quickly. And honestly, I didn't really do it for that long. It was a couple months. Because then I was like, I can't
maybe
do
6
this.
months max.
Yeah. So I feel like I did have a little bit experience in that, but honestly, like you said, I'm not even close. Like, I feel like the experience I have now, like 3 years of experience that I have now, just gives you so much more confidence. Yeah. I'm like, I know exactly what works. Obviously, we always talk about this. It changes every day with the internet, but that process just gave me so much confidence too.
Yeah. And so, all right, so you bagged your first client. After that, like, were you just like so excited for what this thing could become? And I guess kind of tell me, the wave that you were riding after that.
I was really anxious. I remember I just didn't have a lot of confidence in myself yet.
Yeah.
The interview with the blogger did give me some confidence, but once I quit my job and I was like, oh crap, like I have to make this work now.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I don't know. I just didn't feel qualified. I had imposter syndrome. That's a really good term. Yeah. I had a really bad imposter syndrome. And I really had to dig deep into that. And I was like looking at other people that were doing what I was doing. And I saw someone say, you will have imposter syndrome till the day you die. Like, that's just something that everyone experiences.
Do you still have that now?
A little bit. But I think, like I said, the past few years it's changed my perspective of like, I don't think anyone fully 100% like goes into everyday confident. So if you look at every successful person, you're like, they've had imposter syndrome at some point. They didn't know what they were doing when they first started. And I think viewing it differently has given me confidence because I'm like, everybody's just trying their best. Everyone started from somewhere. Because I used to look at people and be like, wow, they just immediately woke up and were successful and knew exactly what they were doing. And I feel like once you change your mindset a little bit to everyone's just like you, they all start from somewhere. But yeah.
And like Hormozy says, confidence is just evidence.
Yeah,
that you can do it.
Absolutely.
Which you've shown. There's a lot of evidence that you can do it.
Yeah.
I know. You've came up with a lot of trendy ideas for me. And I was like, holy crap, Tawnee, you were right.
Yeah.
So fast forward to when Zach came along, right? Because Zach kind of provided it was very much like Tawnee handling the workload, right? I guess. And then Zach was like, holy crap, this could be a real big thing.
For sure.
Tell me the mindset that you brought to the Z&T agency.
Yeah. So at previous, before I jumped in, there was no such thing as like the Z&T agency. It wasn't an agency. It wasn't anything. It was just Tawnee kind of doing it as social media management, strictly social media management as like a side hustle type thing. And I was working in real estate. I was working for a REIT hedge fund type thing, running the acquisitions, dispositions for the fund, because I have always kind of had a passion for investment real estate. So I was working in that, and I kept seeing all the demand for the socials. And one example, which was just so crazy to me, was when she was still working at Power Ad. The lawn care company was mowing the grass, and she wasn't even in her car. She was inside mowing the grass, and boom, hits her front bumper, puts a hole in her front bumper. And through the course of trying to get that fixed, and Tawnee was working with the guy, the owner of the lawn care company, because they we're taking care of it. Through the course of that, this was, fast forward a couple months later after she had launched and started the social media thing and was no longer working there. They were having this conversation, and the guy was just like making small talk type thing. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you still work at Power Ad?" And she's like, "Oh no, I'm, started social media business." And he's like, "Social media business? Huh?" He's like, "Huh, that's interesting. I
love his impression.
Yeah, right." He's like, "That would be something like we really would need that." And so it just showed me how crazy it was that from a situation where, a lawn care company would put a hole in her front bumper leads to a possible, client. You know what I mean? And so this just kept happening over and over and over. I'm no joke, not exaggerating. I think that there were like 8 or 9 instances where people were like coming and expressing interest in what she was doing. And she was at a point, because she was just doing it by herself, kind of as a side hustle type thing, to where she was kind of maxed out. She couldn't do more. And so I'm looking at this, and I have my degree in marketing. So I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And was looking at this, and I'm like, there's so much demand here.
Business owners, do you know the value of creating a strong brand and realize social media is one of the best ways to do it, but don't have the time to stay consistent or know where to start? Do you need a modern website or an eye-catching logo? You only get one first impression, and you've got to make it count. No matter if you're looking for a website, a logo package, or if you need a professional to craft and implement a custom social media strategy to create a recognizable brand and drive sales, the Z&T agency has got you covered. Odds are you've probably been thinking about these things to some degree, but didn't know a solution. Or maybe this is all new to you and you're interested in hearing more. Either way, we'd love to talk to you. Reach out to zach.hire@theztagency.com to book your consultation call today.
Would it make sense for me to jump in and help her and blow this thing up a little bit? Well, she was a little hesitant about that because...
And why?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know, it was my baby. Like, I was very protective over it. I had a close relationship with all my clients. I just didn't know how it was going to work either. I'm like, okay, what's he going to do? Like, come in and, take charge. Like, how is this going to work? And you always hear people talking about working with their spouse, and I feel like 99.99999% of the time it's a negative connotation. And so I didn't want, like, I wanted you to always be my husband, not my coworker. And I was like, I just hope that doesn't change our dynamic, because I like our dynamic. And I was really hesitant about it. And I remember,
well, I also think that with me jumping in, she knows that I'm like, let's go do this
you're
thing.
You're a dreamer, yeah.
And so I think that a little bit, be honest, that you were scared to grow.
Yeah, I'm definitely a comfort person. Like, if you told me that I could stay a small little social media business until the day I die and make X amount and have a good relationship with my clients, I'd be like, perfect, great. Like, which I think is good in our marriage, because you're the dreamer. I think if you have 2 dreamers, to a degree, it's okay. But I think, like, you need someone to kind of, pull you back a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, I was just, the biggest thing, I was nervous about, like, the growth and stuff, and like, I didn't want to grow too quickly. I think that was one of my biggest things too. I was like, and we did a good job together of growing slowly.
Yeah.
And building, I wanted to build a really good foundation. I didn't want to grow. And then I love having close relationships with my clients. Every client I have, we work so well together. I'm like, I don't want to just be bringing on so many people and not have a good relationship with them, or people who aren't kind. Like, I want people, I believe in their business. I know what they want to do. We work together really well. And so I was just nervous how that was going to look. But I thought most of it was the fear of it changing our dynamic.
Which you guys have done a great job at managing your relationship and business, and I've seen that.
Well, we've been very intentional about how we constructed it and how we work together and what we do. So there's been a lot of like time and intentionality put into how we structure it. So that way, we can be business partners from X time to X time, but after this, we're husband and wife. So we've been very intentional about that. But
I think that we've also we respect each other when it comes to work. I mean, all the time, but especially when it comes to work, even we can be arguing about something, but once we're talking about work, like we both respect each other's opinions and ideas. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And it's also important. You need to be able to like kind of, what's the word? Like compartmentalize, is that the word?
Yeah.
You have to be able to do that, because like there are times where maybe we're not getting along and we have to just like go film something, or we have to figure out what we're going to post.
Yep.
And it's like, all right, just suck it up, like let's go.
Right. So to answer your question, we kind of went on a tangent a little bit there, but I saw the demand for this, and in August of 2023, so coming up on a year, she gave me the permission to jump in and team up and really make the agency what it is today. So when I jumped in, I wanted to get a lot of fundamental business things in place. So previously we were just, collecting our monthly retainer off check or cash or
I was
Venmo.
mailing checks like an old timer.
Yeah, right. So I wanted to get structure in there and systems in there to make it an actual business. So got a payment processor in place, got our LLC in place, and then actually decided to like turn it into a full-blown marketing agency, which kind of leads into where we're at today a little bit. So we don't just do social media marketing. We have an extremely talented graphic designer on our team as well. And he'll build custom websites, logo packages where he designs straight from scratch. He also can do like package design. So if you have products that you're looking or packaging that you're looking to design, he can do that as well. Business cards, things of that sort. He can do all that kind of stuff. And he does it at the highest level. He has worked with some very successful household brands, such as one of them is Sour Strips. Sour Strips is actually the number one, I think, sour candy in Target nationwide. So it's the number one selling candy in Target. He's worked with Anabar, which is in GNC. It's in Vitamin Shop, if you're familiar. He's also had work displayed in Times Square in New York City. So he's extremely talented at what he does. We're very thankful to have him a part of the agency and have him on our team. So it has allowed us to really turn into more than just social media marketing and get into those other marketing avenues as well.
Yeah. So it started out as just like, hey, we're making a couple posts to, all right, Zach came on, he's a dreamer. There's more to this. Now we're building websites, logos. We're doing content creation, packages grew, prices, revenue, all that stuff. Thing. So kind of took it to the next level. So what is the next level from here?
So I think the biggest thing is we would like to continue to build our retainer client base. If there's one thing that I've learned from previous job experience, it's not to scale too quick. And Tawnee mentioned this a little bit. Not to scale too quick to where we don't have infrastructure built to properly serve our clients. Like she was saying, having good relationships, providing quality service, quality work, that is at the forefront of what we're doing. So we want to continuously grow, but at a methodical pace to where we are making sure that we are best serving our clients. So we want to continue to grow the retainer space for the social media marketing. Additionally, we would love to get to the point to where we are driving more and more projects to our graphic designer, Grant, and allowing him to kind of fulfill that on his side and kind of grow, his revenue as well. And then one of the things that we were talking about was, he is just a one-man army right now. So he can do, 2 to 3 projects a month. And by projects, that means, websites and maybe a logo design. So he can do 2 to 3 of those a month very comfortably, maybe pushing to 4. But I would love to get to the point, because with conversations that we've had with him, he has basically said, hey, as a one-man army, I'm kind of the bottleneck. And so we were having conversations surrounding this. And I was like, well, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Right. And he's like, I wouldn't mind like getting some designers under me and being able to either continuously do projects, but also manage and help other graphic designers below him. And that's going to allow all of us to increase the project flow that we're able to do. So maybe instead of, 3, max 4, maybe now we can do, 6 or 7, max 8, whatever that may look like. I would love to get to the point to where we can help him alongside us grow that branch of the agency, continue to grow the social media marketing. But also what we have with Grant is, in getting back into a little bit of what it was like diverting off to him, there were so many people that were coming to Tawnee. And once I jumped in, coming to us saying, do you do websites? Do you do logos? And we're like, oh, no, we don't.
Yeah.
And so then it was, us having the conversation of, maybe do I start trying to build websites and, going through that process. But then I'm like, well,
can you imagine Zach on his
No.
lap trying to build websites?
No.
Yeah, that's,
I could just see him getting so
I
frustrated.
would get very frustrated.
That's a different language.
Right. So, and then I'm also like, I can't charge clients in good faith for a product that I'm learning how to do, right? So it's probably going to be a crappy product, and or it's going to take an eternity for me to figure it out. And I'm like, in good faith, ethically, I can't do that. So we had the epiphany of, hey, let's keep the main thing and incorporate somebody on the team that's their main thing. They're a professional at what they do. And that led us into the website logo space with Grant. And so I say all of that to say this is, we don't do any of the work. We continuously keep our focus on the social media stuff. Grant keeps his focus on the graphic design stuff. And we're getting top level professional websites, logos, graphic design for clients, and we're not having to do the work. So
You're a prestigious one-stop shop.
yeah. So I would like to duplicate that model in under the marketing sphere. What can we continuously look to offer, like we do graphic design with Grant, in the marketing space with other, professionals, to where, once again, we can keep the main thing, but we can have this branch of the agency that does this marketing thing, maybe paid ads, maybe, a professional videographer, photographer, things that may look like, and add that into the agency, all under the umbrella of the Z&T agency, and build it from that perspective. So that way it is truly a comprehensive, marketing agency.
Did you ever think it would get to this point, Tawnee?
Absolutely not.
I did.
Yeah, Zach's such a dreamer. Yeah, gosh, there is such a demand. How many people do you have like banging down your door trying to get services?
Quite a few.
I've had.
You guys have a wait list for like retainer clients, don't you?
Yeah.
Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest? Be sure to use a Maxwell Group at NavX Realty, where your dream is our passion. The Maxwell Group takes pride in client relationships and experiences. We utilize our knowledge, our love for the industry, and our extensive network to handle your life's biggest investment. Call or text Spencer Maxwell at 937-572-5382.
When I go into rooms or meet with people and kind of explain what I do, what we do, it's met with, oh, wow, like that is something that I should consider, and excuse me. I'm having multiple of those conversations of people expressing interest. And like I said, with the retainer clients, we want to be methodical. We want to grow at a clip that we can maintain, and we can continuously service at the highest level for those clients. And then also, we just want to work with people that we want to work with.
Yeah.
That's a big thing because we're communicating with them every day.
Well, also to kind of piggyback off that, because I know this stat. Tawnee, tell me your stat as far as turnover goes since you started this business. Zero turnover.
We've had no turnover in 3 years. No turnover.
So the demand is obviously there for the services, which kind of gets us into these statistics that Zach has. So that's the question is, for you entrepreneurs out there, or if you're starting your own business, we've had an episode on the power of building a brand, and social media ties right into that. Mm-hmm. So tell us why a social media presence and having a good brand out there for the world to see. Why is that so important?
All right, I'm about to get on my soapbox. It's not a want to do, it's a need to do. It is a necessity. It is a must. One of the reasons why I say this is because there is data and there are studies that will go to show that our society now, so 2024, business, sales, you name it, is becoming more and more relationally based. Mm-hmm. People want to do business with people that they know, people that they like, and people that they trust. And yes, there's studies and data to prove this, but just use some common sense and look at it. Do you want to do people with you that like, and trust? The answer is probably yes. Yeah. Well, I think a huge reason for this is because there are so many scams now. People don't know who and what to trust. Everybody has their guard up. Everybody thinks that everything's a scam, especially in the age of AI, where there's a lot of good that can come from it. There's a lot of bad that can come from it. And, just the fact of the matter is we live in a world with bad characters, and they're leveraging AI in a way to, scam people. And, people are very apprehensive of this. And there's, how many spam calls do you get a day? How many spam calls do I get a day? I mean, my phone just rings with all these just spam calls, right? So between scams, between spam calls, and everything in between, people are extremely apprehensive to do business, and their guard is up. So they're wanting to do business with somebody that, hey, I know you. I like you. We're friends. You've proven trust. And that's just where our market and society is going. So how does that tie into social media? Well, socials provide a very unique way to build trust with clients. So many people, they'll go to Google, right? And they'll Google realtors near me, for example. Well,
you're going to laugh at me because I'm still that old school guy. Like I still Google blank near me.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
I think specifically, like when you do Google something, even like I'm having this problem because we moved, trying to find like doctors and stuff. And I Google like a doctor near me, or eye doctor near me, something like that. And I'm like, okay, like what sets all these people apart? Like I look at their reviews and I'm like, they all have like the same, like good, a couple bad, like they're all the same. So I'm like, I have no idea who I want to go to. And then I just get super overwhelmed. And then I'm like, I'm not even going to continue this search because I don't know what to do. And I feel like social media is a little bit different in that if I look up, let's say like a real estate agent, I can build trust with that person and I see who they are. I see their personality. I see like what style they have. I feel like it almost, you can just pick who you want kind of without having to read through like 300 reviews and they're all kind of the same.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. Google is, every business has reviews. Everybody's talking about how fantastic they are, and everybody has those. Right. And with social media, here's the caveat. You have to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I mean by do it right? You have to be consistent with it. You have to post. One thing is, and this is what a lot of people are not going to want to hear, you have to post video content. That's one of the biggest things, because how is somebody supposed to get an insight to you and your personality and who you are as a person by a picture, through a picture,
and
through a
caption,
photo,
yeah.
and a caption? You really can't. It's the videos that are going to be relatable. And what's the amazing thing about this from the content creator standpoint, from the business standpoint, is if you do the content correctly and if you put in the efforts and create good content, people can come to that continuously.
Well, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Is creating a lot of content and creating good content and utilizing social media to its max capacity, is that a part-time job? And is it something that the average human could do while still focusing on their craft?
No. Simply put, no. And that's one thing that people fail to realize or recognize is the amount of effort that has to go in to properly doing socials. Because yes, by all means, if you want to, save a buck and go run socials yourself while also try to run your business,
it won't be worth the time that you put in because you're not going to do it well.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you're not being consistent and doing what you should on socials, you're not going to see the growth, the exposure, and ultimately the income that's going to come in through building a brand.
Yeah.
And here's also the thing, because when I was talking about the website stuff, keeping the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're diverting your attention between trying to play with socials and trying to build a business, you're probably going to be mediocre at both.
I could not be a good realtor and do social media at the same time. 100%.
Let me give you guys an example. So this is how my job is to make sure people are posting consistently and posting quality content that adds value to make people want to follow you. I know that I need to be posting on my Instagram. I don't, because I am focused on my clients and I feel like I'm putting my business before my personal, right? And I feel like that's how other people view their Instagram, even for their business. They're like, I'm trying to run a business here. So that comes first. And then at the end of the day, I will give my leftovers to my social media. You don't have leftovers. If you run a business, you're giving your all to your clients, to your customers, and then you have nothing left to give. And that's how I am with my social. I'm like, I know I want to be posting, but I just don't have it in me. I'm giving all to everyone else.
And here's another thing that is frustrating from our standpoint is if people try to do it themselves, and exactly what Tawnee was saying, give essentially their leftovers to social media, they're not going to see results because the input that it takes to get the output is a lot higher than what they think. So if they think that, hey, I'll just post once a week or once a month or, twice a week, and they see nothing happening, then they're like, well, social media sucks, doesn't work. It's like, no, it doesn't work because you're not properly doing what you should be to grow it. And there is so much that goes into it. So not only is it posting consistently like you should, but you have to be posting creme de la creme content, right?
So why does it need to be so well done?
I personally, looking back at, let's say, because Instagram was in its prime, like around 2016. I feel like that was the birth of like all the bloggers and influencers.
Mhm.
And I'll
For
talk
sure.
to people who are really successful and I'll ask them, like, how did you do it? And they're like, oh, I got in at the right time. They'll always say that. And I'm like, it's because if you posted, you grew. That's how Instagram worked in 2016. If you posted consistently, you grew. Nowadays, it's a lot harder to grow. So you have to have a strategy. You can't just post whatever you want and be like, oh, okay, people are going to follow it. That's not how it works anymore.
Well, it's so much harder because the marketplace has realized the value in this. So everybody and their brother are starting to do this, right?
Mhm.
And with multiple people doing it, and I don't want to say saturation, but with so many people doing it, there are people that do it really well.
Yeah, you need to stand up.
In people for so you asked the question of why does it need to be, great quality? Well, I'm going to flip the question back on you, Spencer. When you're scrolling on your reels, when you're scrolling on your TikTok, if it's not crisp, clear quality,
I'm
if
scrolling.
you're scrolling.
Yep. And we all know the stat. You have 2 seconds to grab my attention.
Exactly.
And I hate to be the guilty party of it, but I am.
It's true. And I fall in that bucket too of like, if there's so much great content now that if you don't have great content, see you later. I'm scrolling. I'm not even giving you the time of day. So you have to have great quality in terms of picture quality. You have to have great quality in terms of content quality. You've got to have hooks that are that are out there that grab people's attention within the first 2 seconds. You know what I mean? And gets them to stay for the remainder of the video or whatever that may be. And another big thing is the algorithm, right? The algorithm is constantly changing, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be. So for example, on Instagram, it used to be we need to post 7 days a week, right? Well, the algorithm has adjusted from Meta themselves, and now it prefers that you post, 4 to 5 times a week now, and you're consistent on your stories, and from that perspective. So that's another thing that having somebody in the profession, we keep up to date on some of that stuff. And if you're trying to run a business, you don't have time to do the research in addition to, planning out your hooks and getting great content and having
Staying
quality.
on top of trends.
Exactly. So there's so much that goes into it that people don't realize and or discredit. And that's one of the big conversations of, when we're sitting down and we're having like a consultation meeting with a possible new client, and we're laying out packages and what we offer and all that kind of stuff. Some people are a little like, oh, like that's a little expensive. Well, let me explain why. And then we dive into the details of everything that it takes to create good content and build a brand. And a lot of some of our clients, they had nothing. They're starting with zero. Like we're literally creating the accounts for them. So we're starting from zero and we're trying to create and craft a brand for them that they can kind of take through and build that and cultivate that as we go through it. There's just a lot that goes into it. So you can try to do it yourself, but when you don't see the results or your business starts lacking, can't say I didn't tell you so.
Yeah. So, because I guess you guys have referred to this before, social media is like the modern day window shopping, to where if you're walking downtown, you're looking at the window and then you're on to the next window if you don't see what you like.
Yep.
It is the modern day window shopping. And you have a lot of good stats on here as far as like, you did a great job of like, hey, this is why, but we have actual statistics that support what you guys just said.
Exactly. And that's, I'll get into this of why I said it's not a want, it's a need.
Yeah.
So here are some statistics that will kind of validate. So don't take my word for it because I can just blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
Here are stone cold statistics. So why is social media important in this day and age? Well, for starters, 74% of people research on social media prior to making a purchase. So that seems like a lot. 74%, 3/4 of people, right? Well, let me tell you a story. I am guilty on the 74%. So we got invited to a dinner around Christmas time. So, oh my gosh, I was going to say a couple months ago, but oh my goodness, it's like 6 months ago.
It's crazy.
Time flies, people. That's crazy. Anyhow, around Christmas time, we got this invitation to a dinner, Tawnee and I, with some friends. And it's a place that I had never been before. And so I was curious. I was like, oh, where am I going? What am I going to eat? What's the ambiance
Where
like?
do I park?
Where do I park?
Is that just me? I look up where to park before I go anywhere.
Little did you know they had valet.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they do have valet. So you know where we went.
Yeah.
So anyhow, getting back on track, the first thing I did not go to Google. I went to their social media pages. I went to their Instagram page. And for starters,
Pristine.
it was pristine. Blown away. They have like 20,000 followers. It's Sueño, downtown Dayton, Ohio, if anybody's wondering. Plug for Sueño. Sueño is fantastic.
Yeah, they are
so
amazing.
good.
It's very good. So we went, or I went. I think that you did too on your own.
I did.
Yeah. I went to their social media page. I went to their Instagram page. I saw the content was fantastic. I saw the chefs making some of their menu items, some of the food. It looked amazing. The content was premier. They had like 20,000 followers. They had their menu, their website linked in their bio. So I could immediately go from content, seeing the carne asada, being like, ooh, that looks good. Let me click on their website. Clicked through their website, saw their menu, and before I ever showed up for dinner, I knew exactly what I was getting. I knew what the ambiance was like. I was sold. And sure enough, we got there and it was
You were
But
pleased.
Top
this
tier.
just shows how like social media is so important for your marketing, because I talk about Sueño constantly. 24/7 to anybody who will listen. And then not only am I like talking about this restaurant and they're probably like, I literally don't care. I'm sitting here being like, wait, look at this. Look at their Instagram.
Yeah.
Think about how many people I've done that with. Like and then think about other people who do that with other people.
Yeah.
They're showing their Instagram. And I feel like that makes more of an
Which
impression.
builds trust.
Exactly.
Totally.
That makes more of an impression than if you're talking about a restaurant and you're like, well, you can Google it if you want. Like there's you don't see the personality in the business. you
Totally.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. So needless to say, we fell into the 74%.
So 3 out of every 4 people shop on social media before they make a decision.
And then this kind of ties in a little bit, but 55% of consumers find new businesses on socials. So if you're a new business, if you're trying to get off the ground, if you're trying to build a reputation for yourself, over half of people are going to find you on socials versus other platforms. Here's one that just blew my mind. This one was crazy. So consumers who engage with a business via social media spend on average 40% more on that company's products or services. So just by them engaging and interacting with a company on socials, that client, that customer is going to spend on average 40% more.
And once again, I feel like that's because of the relationship aspect.
It's the trust.
I'll spend more if I know you and I want to support you. I don't care about the dollar. I just want you to do well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just let's take a step back because I'm talking to you business owners here. Imagine what getting 40% more income on what you're
Revenue,
doing.
yeah.
Exactly. I mean, think what that does for your business. Think what that does for your margins. You know what I mean? Think what that does for your bottom line. That is so powerful. So that's all coming through socials. How are these things possible? How are we getting 74%, 55%, spending 40% more? How are these things possible? Well, here's something that's staggering. 4.9 billion people today are on social media platforms. 4.9 billion. And this shows you the trajectory in which this is heading. So by 2027, so in a couple years, that 4.9 billion is going to grow to 5.85 billion. So almost grow by a billion users in a couple of years. So that's the trajectory that you're headed. That's the eyeballs that you're getting here. I don't mean to just like blow you away and just bore you with statistics, but here's another great one. The average user spends 150 minutes on social media a day. 100, that's over 2 hours. And
I feel like that's the low end.
You took the word straight out of my mouth. Yeah. That's the low end. I've seen people that have screen times of like 7 hours. Granted,
are you subtweeting me right now?
No, I'm not.
I also work on my phone. So.
Right. Yeah, well, your business is social media, so you got to study the trends.
Right. Which, I mean,
that's your excuse.
All that screen time's not just socials, but 150 minutes, I would say that's a very, very conservative number. And then here, we'll wrap it up with this one. 130 million Instagram users engage with shopping posts every month.
Shout out my dad.
Yeah.
Every time we go over there, he's like, look, I bought this on Instagram.
So it's like, you can send a mailer or you can focus on social media where there's 4.9 billion users.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And 130 million users engaging every month.
And granted, there are still some old ways of businesses that do prove successful. However, this does get your foot in the door with a lot more people. I mean, this is a necessity, and this shows you the statistics as to why it is such a necessity.
For sure. And one of the beautiful things about social media is, and I think I kind of touched on this a little bit, but for the content creator, if you're doing what you're supposed to and you're creating good content, there are content posts that are called evergreen. So what do I mean by that? If you make a post that's really good, that is continuously relevant, people can always go back to that post, share that post, and more people can see that. And, if you make something about X 2 years from now, if you did a good job, people can still go back and look at that post, look at that content that you put out.
Getting re-engaged.
Yes. Yeah. And that's because that's no extra work on your part.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's the powerful thing about this stuff is it's one to many. And Hormozy talks about this a lot is, you can put in the time on a post and it goes to thousands of people on the exposure reach, but then it's continuously being perpetuated throughout, if it's relevant, people going back to see it, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Like I
posted a reel for one of my clients a couple months ago and it went viral and it's still, it has more views every single day. I wake up and there's 100 new followers every day just from one reel. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And for example, like I'll have, and I'm sure that everybody can relate to this, but people use YouTube for, all like how to do, right?
Yep.
So, how many times have you looked, like, for example, I was restringing my weed whacker and I went back to a video like 3 years ago on how to restring this specific weed whacker. And so that's a stupid example, but it showed you that content creator posted that video 3 years ago. And here I am, still looking at it.
It stays out there.
Exactly. So it's extremely important.
Well, I'm sold.
And
I already used the services, but I'm sold. So if you're listening to this and you are sold on, or you want to hear more about it, where can they find you guys?
Couple different places. So you can hit us on our socials, specifically on Instagram, the Z&T Agency. And then if you are interested in getting in contact with us about any services, whether that be a website, a logo package, packaging design, social media marketing, you can reach out to me specifically. And my email is zach.hire@theztagency.com. So that's ZACH.hire, HYRE, at theztagency.com.
Perfect. So reach out to them if this hits you pretty hard, which I think it should. And then also, as we like to end every episode with some of God's word. Zach,
Absolutely.
do you have a little bit of God's word for us?
I do. And I think this is really good for today's pod, especially with Tawnee and I working together and kind of the idea and theme of that. So Ecclesiastes 4:9-10. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up.
That is very
That's-
relative.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that not so
I'll
relative?
help you up, babe.
I appreciate it. And vice versa. I'll help you up too, sugar.
Oh my
It might be a little easier for you to help me up.
Hey. No, I'm kidding.
So yeah, well, seriously, if you guys are in need of their services, or if you just want to hear more and inquire about what it does take, or maybe you want to start your own marketing agency, reach out to Zach and Tawnee on their socials, and feel free to, as always.
Well, first of all, Spencer, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for taking the time to kind of ask the questions and allow us to kind of explain ourselves and
It
promote
is
the
a
business.
good business model, and it is an important business nowadays. I have seen return off my investment from investing in the Z&T agency. So you guys always, I'll give you a 5-star review on Google.
Oh.
Thank you. And speaking
So
of
nice.
speaking of reviews, if you all got
Good segue.
value from the pod, we're starting to shamelessly ask if you found some value, if you would leave us a review on the podcast. That's just kind of allows us to help us grow, help the platform grow, expand it and share it to more people. So if you'd be willing to give us a review, that would be much appreciated. And that is all we have for today's episode. We'll catch you next week on the Blueprint Podcast.
Bye.
Peace.
Peace.